All right, this is John Tabacco, and I'm talking to Bob Ball. And Bob, we are going to discuss today, drones and artificial intelligence. You had shown me one thing about drones. It was frightening. And I don't see anybody else talking about this. I don't think they're thinking about this at all, how much trouble we could be in with this kind of technology.
You're not going to believe it, but I am to blame for all of this.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's great.
Back in 1967, I myself wrote the first human interface programming for basically a robotic system that drilled PC boards to a thousandths of an inch multi-layer boards for the space program.
Wow. You were only 7 years old. That's pretty impressive.
Well, my father, I was working at my father's plant for him. He had I'll never forget, it was a book about, I guess it must have been 230 pages of green bar print.
What does that mean?
Green bar print, if you remember my big line printer at the lab, and the papers were like that big, and they were separated with green bar, and there's a lot of print per page.
A lot of printing, yeah.
So he had some 250,000 plus coordinates I had to type into the computer to drill these boards. And I'm looking at it, and it's just numbers. He had no luck with the girls. He said, "You're pretty good with numbers. Let you try." I worked on it for about 2 hours, and my error rate was really no better than the ladies he had. It was about 53%. The reason why is because you had 14 digits to type for each coordinate, X and Y axis. Right?
Yeah, that's a lot. So
human beings are not meant to type in numbers. After a while, you don't know where the hell you are.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
So I said, this is crazy. I said to my father, I said, "Dad, there's no way we can do this. When you have to have this done," and he told me that. I said, "It's not going to happen. Let's rethink how to do this." So we took an overhead projector.
Yeah.
And we basically built a Norton bomb sight out of it. We reversed it. So
what does that mean?
Well, instead of you moving a paper on the Norton bomb sight, we turned it into the fact that the table was moving under the glass sheet. Okay, and that the person represented this essentially this Mylar coated. We did it all with graphics. Back then, all the boards had to be laid on a big screen by hand. We had little decals. So I made a bullseye, multiple grade bullseye with a crosshair in the center. My father gave me the printout, which was the photo negatives, which were positives essentially, of the actual lands and layouts of the circuit. And then we put it to the table. We masking taped it to the table, and then I took my joystick out of my Kraft remote control radio, yeah, because I didn't have one. And we hooked up a simple PL oscillating circuit, where each niche of the thing, if you went all the way, it would be 1/1000th of an inch, X and Y axis. Right. Okay. If you went a little bit, it moved one sample, and then 20 samples, and then 50 and 1,000. Okay, and it would actually all the way at the end, it would it would hum, because these were step drive motors, and they were moving 1/1000th of an inch each step. And you aligned the table with an actual 10-power microscope. And it punched out, the coordinates were right on this bar here, with the numbers like, the Colossus Foreman project, where the numbers were going inside and out with a tube, X and Y digits, 7 digits. They were translated to an IBM, basically a teletype printer, which printed paper tape on the side. And every time we hooked up a floor switch, when you punched the floor switch, it would stamp the numbers and the coordinates. And then we marked out each drill size with a flare pen. And I told my father, I said, we don't have to mark out every single hole. We just mark out, because they were integrated chips, so that you just have to mark out the left corner land, because that was what we did. We could have anything consistent. The left corner land was the one we used, and we just did a series just for that chip. So we would make a loop out of it. We would actually program a loop and tape it. And so that when we hit those chips, then we would just put that loop through, and that would be the coordinates for the punch-out tape. Okay? So it was much faster. It was like a video game, essentially. So I buzzed right through that without a problem because I could very accurately, within a 1,000th of an inch, get those coordinates directly over the pond landing. And because the thing was a subroutine, essentially, on each one. So I created the first human interface with my dad. I mean, without having to type in a whole bunch of coordinates and things. Then we had a simple tape for drill change, a simple tape for homing the table, a simple tape for dust clean out. I mean, all the routines that would run. We made a specific routine tape, and you would write it with a white wax pen on it, and then we made a master tape. As soon as the master tape was done, I said, no, let's make a backup. So we made 2 copies of the thing. When we ran the first one, it ran halfway and then all of a sudden ripped because the tape reader, micro switch, got stuck because it was paper tape. And it ripped the whole tape. And so it would have destroyed what we had. So we had to literally fix it and stuff. But then I said, let's make 3 of these things, and we never had a problem since we had the 3. And you could say, well, Bob, is that why you have 3 backups? Or essentially,
yeah, it goes back that far.
One to spill coffee on, one to drop and break, and one to actually have to use. So I came up with that mentality back then because we spent so many hours developing this.
I bet, yeah.
And then my father, essentially, there was only 2 drill deck machines. They were working both on the space program. And essentially, he just took photographs of it with his Nikon and sent the whole thing to them. They made a fortune on it. But, yeah, you can blame me for all kinds of robots and CAD-CAM systems and whatnot. I was the first one to... Because I realized, I said, look, you can't relate to a machine way. You have to relate in a human way. So they do it now. Like, for example, when they want to weld a chassis for a car, they have an actual master welder go in, and he actually moves the arm and controls it and master welds the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is that the machine records as he's moving the arm, everything he's doing, and then they correct it. They might adjust a few bits and bytes, not unlike you're recording it, you adjust. And then they simply just run that. And they do this same thing for painting and everything else. And yeah. And then when I got involved with operating systems back in the 80s, in the beginning, the systems were running on 68,000s, 8 megahertz Motorola chips, which is the same chips, by the way, that ran the space shuttle computers. And we were running a Xenix, which was basically Unix 5 version. And we were having lots of problems because there was really no graphical user interface. And there's so many maintenance routines that have to be done on a regular basis to flush out certain caches and mount file system check and other things. And you can only write so many batch files, but we need something to write these batch files but make changes to them and then log the change and then send you the results via email. Okay? And we were doing I was doing the first things, and we were doing PBX systems and financial systems and whatnot. And I was doing this whole thing by myself. So I started basically building a kind of AI to do this. And I came up with James, believe it or not, the name of my second son, Job Application Monitor Efficiency System. And it rewrote it, I allowed it to rewrote itself and do changes, and kind of got scary there for a while.
Yeah, you said that it rerouted itself if something happened and you realized
a guy was doing maintenance work and putting up sheetrock and whatnot, and he drilled into one of the main cables for the whole computer center. The main things. And this thing rerouted everything within at least a minute and a half. I couldn't believe it. And I was like really proud of it. Then I was like really scary. I was like, well, what else can you do if something else
right.
happens.
Exactly.
You know? So I was like, oh no, you know.
Well, you always talked about computers and things of that nature as them being our slaves. Do you think that's going to ever turn around?
Well,
I think it has already turned around in the future.
in a sense, what happened is there were people out in California that started, and Washington too. They said that, you know, these people working at McDonald's or essentially no skills necessary job entry level stuff. You had to be working at a livable wage. Well, these jobs were not meant to, they weren't meant for a livable wage. They were meant for kids that were working in high school, kids that were saving for a trade school or college or something, okay? They were meant for a young person to get their feet wet with a certain amount of organization skills and responsibility of being there on time and whatnot, okay? Because face it, you don't have to have any experience or any knowledge, and they train you, okay?
Right.
So in all kinds of business, everybody's in business to make money, which means the bottom. You have to look at the bottom line and the cost-benefit analysis. So when they started raising these people up, and they said, "Well, you have to raise them up to $15, and you have to give them health insurance, and you have to give them this, and you have to give them that." You know, I was like, "Well, why not just give them $1 million?" Why not just tomorrow give everybody $1 million? And then see what the price of milk is going to be the day after that.
Exactly. It's not going to work.
Okay, it's not going to be $3 a gallon. It's going to be $1 million a gallon.
I know, right.
So it just doesn't work, okay? And what happened was these people have been sitting on these computerized hamburger flippers, all kinds of computerized systems, kiosks and everything else. But they had a hump to buy these systems. They're expensive. To go in and buy this system was a certain amount of money. You needed a certain amount of money to buy it. Well, there it is. They were like, and again, you had some accountant doing the beans. Here he is with the beans, the bean counter, and he's like, well, yes, it'll cost us X amount of money now, but it'll actually save us and pay for itself in 6 months. That was their criteria. Half a year. What did they do? They did it. So then the raise put a whole bunch of people, mandatory, out of business, essentially unemployed. Mm-hmm. And it happened all over the place. And that's what happens when the governments mandate something, and it always makes things more expensive. You know, if for example, LASIK surgery is actually very cheap, and you can get all kinds of financing, and there's competition for breast jobs and cosmetic surgery because insurances don't cover it. So because insurances don't cover it, you don't know you're being charged X amount of dollars for it. The person who's offering this service not only has to be the best at doing it, they have to do it on a basis that somebody can say, well, you know what? Okay, I can afford this. It's going to be that much better for me to do this and whatnot, and there it is. And the price comes down. Except with Apple, which the price keeps going up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, $2,000 for a phone, I mean, it's just...
Really? I guess that's what it's gotten to.
Well, they're not selling as many, so in order to keep their profits, you know, their logic is, well, we're not selling as many, so we'll just charge a heck of 50% more for everything. You know?
Oh, okay.
You know, that's... I think that when they go to this new chip for their operating systems, they're going to lose a lot of customers because I just can't see how people are going to pay for this stuff. I mean, $8,000, $10,000 for a pro computer for you to do what you're doing, and then you got to pay every month for your software and stuff. I mean,
it's a little crazy nowadays.
Just like,
yeah. How you
I just want to create.
Yeah.
I just want to do work. I want to create music, and I want to create audio. I want to have this radio interview. I want to do things. I want to shop on the internet and see things. I mean, you know, we're not buying a car.
Right.
You're talking about, you know, you could have a really nice car for $10,000. A used one, yes, but still nice.
Yeah.
This is a computer that's sitting on a desk. Just saying.
That's a good point.
So... But anyway, they then started. Then we saw these wonderful, you know, Cameron movies like Terminator and stuff like that. But, sci-fi writers have a certain vision. Asimov had it, and Bradbury had it.
Could they be pulling that from the future, you think?
Well, I always talked about photon entanglement and whatnot, but it doesn't, in this case, no. I always said, and I say this to all scientists out there, I think that there should be a mandatory teaching in school, a mandatory book. And the book is Shelley. And you're like, Shelley, what's Shelley? Go ahead, say, what's Shelley?
What is Shelley?
Frankenstein. Because the job of God is already taken. And when you start thinking that I am God and I'm going to do, you start, this where you get killer bees and all this other kind of GMO stuff that's, there are ramifications to everything you do. And no matter how, and I pain with this all the time, trying to create technology that's good for mankind instead of bad. Things that are good that can't be abused. Bad. So that's very important to me.
I understand what you're saying, but unfortunately, a lot of the technology, as you showed me on a video, and I don't have the name of the video, what they could do with drones nowadays, program them, they're so small, and they can actually attack a specific person. That could happen any second now.
When I do this, I'll process it for YouTube. I'll put the description in the description.
That was frightening.
Yeah, it's worse. They say that almost 60 to 70% of communication traffic on the internet are bots. Trying to persuade people to a certain political side, whether it's right or left, doesn't matter. Where you actually will think that you're talking. And they're used now for nefarious reasons. The East Bloc has gotten a hold of this technology, and they're now using it to, instead of them talking to a person, an elderly person or a regular person fishing to get their data, they have these bots doing it.
Give me an example. What do you mean?
Okay. So I profess, and they have the technology to actually make a woman look like an attractive woman, and they could take any real person and make them actually talk and stuff on video and everything. Really?
You would think it was a real thing.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
And it's all generated with macro speak. Like you've heard it on the phone with different things. But instead of it trying to help you, it's trying to seduce you and to give up your information so it could steal money from your account. And what they do is they're smart. They get into your computers, but they don't just wipe out your bank account. What they do is now they don't do that. They look at the bank account and they take less than 2% every month.
And who's going to know?
So 2% every month of some charge or whatever, and they make it look aligned with everything you're doing, so you don't notice. I mean, how many people reconcile a checkbook?
That's a good point.
And you're saying, oh, so what? Well, yes, what? Well, these bots, they go out there for like 100,000 users a month. And you're like, so say, for example, they're getting $200. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And
have you encountered these bots?
Yes.
You have? Okay.
Yes, and there are logic traps you can use to these bots. You can use antonyms and synonyms when you're speaking, and I automatically do it because of my stroke that I had 3 years ago. I sometimes speak, and you've seen this, the exact opposite of what I actually want to say comes out, or I'll hear the exact opposite of what I want to hear, because I had a brainstem stroke. And your connections to your sensors and to your muscles and to your things, they're macro, essentially, routines. So somehow, because I'm using the right side of my brain now, they get reversed from I was using the left side of my brain. That's what I hit. So I have had to, I don't do it as much. I did it a lot worse in the beginning. So, but it gave me an interesting understanding of how you think, how memories are actually saved, and what your muscle memory. I used to think that when you see a ball in front of you, you're driving, all of a sudden your foot hits the brake and you don't even know that it hit the. I thought it was in your back, but it's not.
It's not your spine, you're saying?
It's all in the brainstem, all in the brainstem. Because when I had my stroke and I had this pond stroke, my entire right side, and my speech and everything was all slurred. It was on my right side, and that was because I had difficulty breathing. I had difficulties saying words, because everything on that right side, I had to relearn it. I had to teach it. My right hand, everything. I had to teach it how to do everything. Nothing worked. Nothing knew what it was. So, but I'm here. So that's a good thing, because I have a grandson, sons, and so, and it also, at the beginning I was like, why me and whatever, but it showed me who my real friends are and who are not so much my friends.
Right. But you did relearn.
Yes.
Is that something that you find that computers are getting better at? They can just, it's exponential, I guess, for the computer.
That
right?
thing is that they can, a software program that you write, a very simple one, can rewrite itself at least 100,000 times in 5 minutes.
That's pretty amazing.
So, and that's simple stuff. That's still binary. That's not getting into qubits and other quantum systems and whatnot that's out there, which I'm sure that they've done some AI work in that too.
So
because
unless we put the button, the stop stuff, computers they created all this.
Right.
They must have. At one point, they get so smart in the future, they would be able to do anything, but they wouldn't have a soul or anything probably, but who knows,
Well, in the lab, we had big red switches, and it's a good thing we had these switches.
Yeah.
Every 4 feet. Okay? It's actually a law by OSHA. It's an OSHA standard. I don't know if you knew this. On the shop floor, you have to have these things all over the place. Because the paper broke and the thing went nuts.
Huh.
And it happened many times. And you would just hit the button and it would cut the power. It was a relay. That button was a relay to a circumbreaker relay switch that would literally cut the power to the entire system. And that's what we need to see on these bots, like these Borsa Dynamics and these other things. Now these drones, man, these things are like the size of your hand. I even have one. And the drone that I have was only like $30, and it works on the it communicates, and its brain essentially is I have a dedicated Verizon Android phone for it, but it works with a controller. So I feed it controls and stuff, and then the computer determines what it's going to do.
You use it for flying around to take
I can
pictures?
fly it around my house.
Take pictures of stuff?
Yeah. This Thanksgiving, I want to bring it down to my son's house and take pictures of it for him. But that's how it works, and it stabilizes. And,
Right.
It looks like a dragonfly, really. And you tell it where you want to go. And it just does it, and it even has an automatic landing sequence. So, but they've got things. And look what's happened in Pakistan. They've taken these drones that they've gotten for $60, $70, Chinese, whatever, attached tail cocked off things to it, and they're flying them right over the wall of Israel. And they're dropping them on houses and people and whatnot and burning everything. I mean,
there you go, taking the technology and using it for evil purposes.
Well,
what can you do to stop that? Will it be stopped? Has it been stopped? It looks like that's a total nightmare, Bob.
Well, I could tell you right now that I have to do a video on building your own pocket EMP device. It's kind of like a shield.
Is that feasible?
Sure.
Really?
Sure. And I've looked at a couple things on Amazon, and there are magneto wire. Yeah, it's wire that's basically covered in enamel for everybody else. but they come in rolls. And this one brand, it comes in a roll which it has the leads on the inside and the wire on the outside, and so you wouldn't even have to do anything. You could just use that roll. And I'm looking for a case, that either a yo-yo or something like that to fit it into. To which I just need a AA battery, one AA battery, and a capacitor, and essentially a couple of components. Nothing exotic. To make essentially I remember the photostrobes.
Yeah.
Okay. To make that kind of circuit. And it would generate an EMP pulse.
How far, though?
Only about 30 feet.
You could do a lot of damage 30 feet.
Well, the thing is that these
walking around knocking stuff out just for fun.
I mean, yeah, but at least it won't kill anybody. Well, if they have a pacemaker, you kill them.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, look, that tech is out there. Yeah. I mean, it's already out there.
Right.
But somebody's got to do some defensive thing for these drone things. I mean, the stuff that I saw was really, really scary. I mean, really
it targeted
scary.
Specific people. It was pretty, you could just drop a bunch out of the plane.
Facial recognition stuff, and
And they have all that information because we're on the internet and stuff, and you go to the DMV and
and we've all clicked Facebook, tag this person. If
right,
that's
exactly.
This
so
that's so they already have all this data. I mean,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
not like they don't. It's not like they don't have it. They have the data. So yeah. And then this one guy's doing a presentation. He says, "Well, the good guys and the bad guys, and we could take them out." I'm like, yeah, but who's making the determination of who's good and bad?
Exactly,
because
right.
You see, Obama did that with all these drone attacks. We had 8 years, and he was using and killing more people than we've killed. They didn't even, people have no idea. They just because the press doesn't report anything bad of what he was doing. I mean, he killed like 100 people just to wipe out one guy.
Yeah, collateral damage is very bad.
But yet, if a fighter pilot did that, they'd crucify him.
Yeah.
I mean. And that's all done by these with your taxpayer dollars, folks. I mean, it's not a right thing to do. I have no problem if somebody's got a machine gun and they're just about to kill somebody, or they're designing a bomb and the bomb components, and but wiping out a family's wedding to kill one guy and you kill his son and.
You're far removed
to me,
from it.
that's just making more hostiles. Okay,
of course,
because
Well, how do you see the future in this respect? Look, they can duplicate my face. They can make a video of me that I'm not even there. Or they got my voice. Everything could be fake, but you'd never know. So how is that going to be helpful to the human race? I mean, what are we going to do?
I know and you know. So, for example, if they made a fake of me, okay. And say, for example, they had me interviewed saying whatever, okay? You would know. Because, my tics, my tells, the way I bring images to my mind and talk about them, the way I act. You've been with me since 92.
Yeah, but they could kind of duplicate those tics, though. Don't you think?
Not with the flavor. But it's improving.
It's definitely improving. There's no question about it.
And
all of a sudden somebody said, you attacked a woman and so, and they made a whole scenario and they had your picture and everything. You could barely tell it's not you because they're so good at duplicating your face.
They don't even need to do that. They just for Kavanaugh, they just had a bunch of people, which now we found out that's all fake.
That was a bunch.
Some fake accusations they never even did. It did enough.
It was pretty embarrassing.
It did enough.
Tell you.
And it was all fake. And it came out that it was, by the way, it was fake. Well, I surely hope that this guy, and he's a nice guy. I hope that some AG someplace prosecutes these people because that hurt the actual victims, which means women do get exposed to all kinds of things on a regular basis.
Absolutely, no question.
And this was a detriment to their thing because it then makes the cry wolf syndrome on their call, which might be legitimate.
That's a problem.
And so I think that's terrible. But the thing that happened recently was that Facebook and Google and other things, and people have done this. You could actually find these YouTubes where, and it's pretty scary stuff, where they have two echoes talking to, or two Siri phones talking to each other. And,
that is interesting.
And it's scary stuff because you start seeing the logic of these systems, and you start realizing that they're more like insects than they are, people, which means the high brain, the get it done. If you ever watched an ant, take apart another insect and carry it, it's just, I have to do this, and that's it. And it doesn't care if it dies trying. It 100% is doing this. Same thing with bees. Really, same thing with most insects. And they're very. I mean, people don't realize how sophisticated an insect is, and we've had this discussion.
They're pretty
before.
streamlined insects. They're very interesting.
But my son was even telling me, Dad, he's a test pilot for the Navy, and he says, we still don't understand how a bumblebee flies.
Yeah.
And there it is. If you ever watch a carpenter bee, and you watch him fly, and you're like, I mean, how's this thing doing it?
Yeah.
And how is he getting enough watts to do this? And how is he coordinating and navigating? And he's just got a couple of ganglia in there. I mean, his brain is literally smaller than a pinhead. And you're saying to yourself, and you're patting yourself in the back, look at my iPhone, and it does facial. Well, this guy goes to and from a nest and gathers pollen and stuff and nectar and whatever, and replicates, and it does, and all together. They have a rule book, but yet somehow they're working together. I mean, and like I said to you before, I said, even a grasshopper knows calculus.
Yes, it would. It knows exactly
and
how to
because
jump
and you're
from
like,
one place to the other.
How's that? Well, it has to generate instantaneous acceleration to jump from one flower petal to the other. And if he's off, he's now on the floor where he could be eaten by a lot of things.
Right.
So, and that's a grasshopper. So you could just imagine the 4.5 trillion dendrite connections in our brain and what it can do.
Right.
Because we not only know calculus, we know wave Cartesians and all kinds of... We probably even know the next math, but which we desperately need.
Well, you think we're going to come to a singularity, like Kurzweil says, very soon? Where it's got some consciousness of some sort, a robot? Or AI, artificial intelligence, as we call it? Has it already happened?
There's so many systems, so many renegades systems out there. I mean, Google and Facebook had that kind of happen. They shut it down.
Did they?
Yeah. These two bots developed their own language.
Ah, I didn't know that.
They didn't know what they were saying. I'm like... And that was public, so I'm like, So, how much has that happened before?
That's a good point.
And what are they saying? They saying, they need us? Are we in a so-called symbiotic relationship? Are we going to be the so-called bacteria that breaks down proteins for these robots and keep doing the maintenance on them and whatnot?
I don't see how... These robots, I don't see how they would have any use for humans at one point. We would be a cancer to them. Why would you need a human? We cause pollution, we have hate, we cause wars.
No.
There's
a problem. We did a show on it. It's called EMPs. And there are several ways to get it. One is obviously man-made, nuclear war, whatever. But the other that's just as risky, if not more, because it happened several times in the past, is a CME.
Uh-huh.
It's a coronal mass ejection. And a huge one that hits the earth will be just like a big EMP and cause everybody blackout and whatnot and burn stuff. Well, if you're a robot AI system, you're out to lunch.
And why would you be working on that? A robot would figure out how to use like a holographic storage and stuff and crystals. Why would it even use I mean, it would develop itself to that. It would know that. That's a problem. We got to figure out what to do.
I myself, and you know this,
photon based,
I've been saying this. I've been working on new lab to essentially build a prototype, but to really go on the line of manufacturing these things, I mean, there are tremendous physical costs that are involved. You have to create a plant and build a plant that's at least 90,000 square feet just to support a room that's 10 by 10. And it would take you at least a year and a half to get it clean enough to build the crystals that this photon system is going to work on. The whole time you have to pay at least 30 to 40 people, 250,000, if not more, scientists,
right,
essentially, to work this, build this, monitor this, and everything else. Inside the actual fabrication thing, yes, there'll be robots because people can't walk into it because they're too dirty.
Yeah, right. These would be sterile machines, right?
They're literally too... The theater of construction of making these crystals would have to be almost 150 to 250,000 times cleaner than a hospital room. No war. Actually, where they operate. And
would you operate it like in a vacuum?
Has to be filtered down to 0.02 microns.
That's out of control.
Which is so it would take a year and a half to create a room this clean. And you'd have to have everything in the room already, or a way of getting things into the room to be as clean, which you'd have to do.
What would you?
You'd have to get stuff out of the room.
How would you do that? Put radiate it or something? How would you do something like that?
No. This is particulate matter specifically, which means it's so clean that viruses and things like that can't exist, because these crystals that you have to grow can't have any contamination whatsoever. They have to be totally pure. And you're not going to get totally pure. You'll get maybe 2% out of your work lot, or 3% if you're lucky, to be good. The rest you'll have to recycle, and through processes and people and innovation, you'll get a higher yield.
Right, of course.
Essentially. But as you can see, that's a big undertaking. So $2.5 billion just to build a factory, probably another $1 billion to keep it running for 5 years, and you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and the whole time you're going to need people to do this. You can't do it with robots. Okay. Now the technology that you'd have to invent would give us a lot of things. To get us into a Type 1 race, we've done this also. You need photon computers, because you could then simulate all kinds of atmospheric things, all kinds of fission fusion reactions. You could solve so many of the problems. You could tell just from an MRI scan where all the cancer is and how to defeat it and whatnot. I mean, it would really do a lot of things. And there are a lot of goods that can come from this. And unfortunately, a lot of bad. But, again, if it's controlled, a technology, I feel, is a good thing. To get us into a Type 1 race, to go to visit other planets, moons, mine the asteroid field belt. There are things that you could do, and become, a permanent species of this galaxy, essentially. The point is, getting back to this artificial intelligence, I think that anybody... I'll give you the perfect example of the arrogance of man. the Trinity test. There was a group, it's called the Manhattan Project. And there was a group of physicists, probably the best minds in at least the United States, probably throughout the world, at least the top, I would say the top 50 minds in the world at the time. And they did some calculations. They said, look, Oppenheimer, we think that you could set and ignite the atmosphere on fire. Realizing it's maybe 1,000 to 1, but it can happen.
And they still did it.
And he still pushed the button.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to understand what 1,000 to 1 is. I mean, 1,000 to 1, you're pushing this button, and you could destroy all of mankind, everything. And yes, their math was wrong, but that's not the point. He believed it was right. He believed their math was right, and he was willing to gamble to show his pride of what a great achievement he did. And that's some really scary stuff, because that's what I see going on with all these new quantum systems and feeding back on themselves,
right,
and developing AI, and they don't even know what's going on. They don't even know what it's doing. They don't know.
But an AI wouldn't be arrogant. Why would it be arrogant? It was just learning. It'll just exponential. You know what I'm saying? Human beings, it's a different kind of thing.
A bacterium. And we're talking about, for example, flesh-eating bacteria.
Okay.
It's not arrogant.
No, it's not.
But it happened because we made it. We put penicillin into agriculture to get the steer fatter. We put all these things into the feed. We started abusing these antibiotics to do all these things. Big Pharma has created flesh-eating bacteria. This is what I'm saying. You have unabreast consequences for what you're doing. Okay? Does that flesh-eating bacteria know what it's doing? Nope.
It's just doing what it's doing.
It's just trying to survive.
Right.
And there's no different with the killer bees, with the flesh-eating bacteria, and the AI that we see now. No difference. No difference. Those individual systems all have the same premise. They just want to exist. And what's going to happen, because I've done it myself, I wanted this system to be maintained and online. And we've seen it with the DDV virus.
That's dangerous. Yeah, sure.
We've seen how it mutates, how it replicates, and it was very nefarious and everything else, and it caused havoc like you wouldn't believe. You were losing your mind. I was losing my mind. We lost equipment to it, and it's still a bane out there. It's out there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Somebody created it for nefarious reasons, but then what happened? Just like that Star Trek episode Doomsday.
Yeah.
It went uncontrolled. And it had unforeseen repercussions. And I think that's what's going to happen with this technology. If fail-safe, if that red button is not built into everything. And it can be built into the code. It can be built into the circuits. It can be built into the robots. It can be built into the drones. It can be built into all of it.
But they could bypass that. They'd be so smart. Wouldn't they be smart enough to bypass it?
No.
Why
because
not?
there's fundamental things that you can do that you can hardwire in to the system that once the power supply is disconnected, it's disconnected. There's no reset for it.
Right.
Unless somebody physically goes in there and resets that breaker, resets that system.
But given the past of what we've already done, you know that's probably not going to happen. Somebody out there is going to build something without that fail-safe, and it's going to get out of control.
Look,
it's going to.
The history that we have, and we have enough history, the killer bees, flesh-eating bacteria, other computer systems that have gone awry. They shut down stuff that was doing things. Abuse of technology. There has to be Congress has to do something. It has to be laws that are made on an international basis, which means just like the nuclear proliferation, just like anything else, just like chemical weapons and biological weapons, these things have to be dealt with at a United Nations, all nations level.
Right, but the materials are much more accessible. There's going to be a rogue person out there who's totally nuts, who thinks that they know what's right, and going to build something. Who knows what they're going to do? I'm just saying, it seems to me like that the human race is doomed.
No.
That's why I look at it.
No.
In the future, it's just going to be artificial intelligence. It's not going to be us.
Because this technology, the silicon-based technology, is extremely vulnerable. Extremely vulnerable. I could take your microwave oven apart right now, and I can build with aluminum foil here. We can build a thing that would just shoot these things and create essentially a shield, and they wouldn't be able to fly anywhere near it.
Well, right now, but you're talking about things that exponentially learn. They'll figure out ways to do it.
They can't figure out a way to do that.
How could you say that?
Because they're based on electronics.
Yeah, but they'll get beyond electronics. They'll build the photon computer you're talking about. No, these things will be brilliant, man. 1,000 years from now? Come on.
1,000 years from now, photons computers will either be a reality or not, and they will, I really believe, artificial life forms will be a reality, but I believe that they'll be working with us. There'll be another type of sentient life, and they'll be working with us.
Well, then I think that they might be working with us right now, the sentient life from other planets that are watching over us then. Because it's too dangerous, man, what you're talking about. It's too dangerous.
Everything's been too dangerous since the beginning of World War I.
Right.
So, everything's been too dangerous. And
yeah, but notice how after we started to do a lot of explosions and nuclear explosions, we saw a lot more UFOs. So I don't know if that's a coincidence, but maybe they said, hey, what are you guys doing? I'm sure they must be looking at us. They have
everything
to be.
From cave paintings to the Assyrian stuff that they did in Syria and gold and stuff. They've been here for 20,000, 40,000 years. They've been here. Indians have legends of them. Australians have legends of them. You're going to tell me there's pyramids on every single continent. I can tell you right now, we didn't make them. Or at least our technology couldn't even make them today. It would be very difficult to do in an amount of time. Very difficult. So, obviously, other technology has been available at one point.
Right. They might have destroyed themselves, and that's why we don't have it anymore. Who knows?
Well, I personally think that there was a planet between Mars and Jupiter, and there was a war in this solar system, and I'm not the only one who thinks this.
Sure.
Because Uranus is on its side, and something happened, and who knows? The people that are here can be the so-called Robinson Crusoes. They know that it all went back to 6 adults and 6 dogs. That's right, 6 dogs and 6 adults. Believe it or not, 20,000 genes separate all the species of dogs, and 20,000 genes separate all the species of human beings. And essentially, we're like a really incestuous bunch. Don't be fooled by the color, skin, shape of the eyes, whatnot. That's just mutation for being geologic to that specific area. I mean, when I was a kid, my father's wingman was Charles Sam Johnson, and him and my father were the first naval aviators, officers to room together, black and white, in the same room. Now, you have to understand this is going back to 1950. So, but the point is, he told me when I was a boy, he said that a black man, an Indian man, a Chinese man, and an Eskimo, and a white man are all up in Alaska, and they're outside, and it's minus 70. And none of them have goggles. And they're all blind in less than a minute, except for the Eskimo. Because the cornea of your eye will freeze. Froze for the black man, froze for the Chinese man, froze for the white man, except for the Eskimo. Why? Because the Eskimo has brown fat, the same brown fat that's in infants to keep them warm. He has it in his eyelid to keep his eye from freezing. So he naturally developed that mutation. Just like African American man has black skin, because if you're south of the 40 and you're in the tropics, you're going to get skin cancer if you don't have something to block that hard UVB. You're going to have a heat stroke if you don't have kinky hair to create an air cushion in your head to block that. Your eyes are black to brown, same reason. You want to block that light. But if you're north of 40 and you're a black person, you're going to get rickets because you're not going to develop enough vitamin D in your skin from the sun because there's not enough sunlight. So then you can't have the pigmentation, and you might have red hair, you might have blue eyes. You start to see these, because of the geologics, you get these mutations, Same thing with the size of human beings and everything. I mean, they have the New York Marathon, another guy from Kenya. Why? Because he lives his village is 10,000 feet. So he's born with extra blood cells. He's born with a barrel chest. He's born basically with adaptations genetically to be able to survive at that 10,000 foot level. And that translates into sea level when he's running the New York State Marathon. Okay, well, it's 500 feet, but you get what I mean. To where he wins. And the woman from Kenya, I think, won again, whatever, okay? I'm not just, they're great runners. I'm just saying that they just have a genetic slice edge to become that type of an athlete, Just like, believe it or not, all the long distance records are held by women, because on a percentage of body fat, they have a greater percentage. Thus, they float more in water. Thus, they have to execute less of their energy towards keeping themselves afloat. So they're able to swim further distances. They might not swim as fast as men, but they hold all the long distance records because it's easier for them. They're genetically, they have that edge. Does that mean that all these people don't have the same rights, don't have the same thought processes, don't have the same feelings? No. We all breathe the same air, like Kenny said. We all bleed the same red blood. And we all, if we work together, we can do things that will get us out of this and get us into a type 1 civilization and do really great things. And yes, have robots doing hazardous stuff that, and we can do great things. I don't see any problem with TNG data, for example. I don't see any problem with that. And I don't think that data was any less sentient than any person on that ship.
Right.
And that was a photon brain. I mean, Gene Roddenberry is a genius. I mean, he really was. I mean, there's just few people that you see, but, and I think that that's just the way to do it. So.
All right, because it looks to me like everything's becoming more artificial intelligence. Even the stock market, the way it runs, everything's artificial.
So program bot training, sure. So
I don't see how you can say, how can you not say that this exponential learning is going to overtake human beings? It's going to. It has to. They think so much faster than we do. Maybe they can't create a symphony or anything like that, but
I don't say that technology hasn't replaced a certain amount of people doing things. And there are not abuses in the technology. But I also know that there's finite limits of the technology based on silicone systems. Now, when you go to a photon system, which I believe that we are a biological photon computer, which means I believe that we have in our brain photon entangled teleportation systems in our brain. I think that we have entangled photons. They've proven this in science, where the conscious mind is actually entangled, and I think that's all part of it. That's how we can go through so-called time. And I think that's what deja vu is. I think that's what the soul is. I think it's how it all works. And I think that once we create a photon-based system, it won't be nearly as elegant as what we have in our head.
Yet.
Well, for a long time, at least 100 years, maybe 50.
That's
maybe,
right around the bend.
Maybe 50 to 100 years.
That's right around the bend.
But again, I don't see how when you have systems like this that they won't, even though, and Data's a really good example of this, to which that he didn't have any emotions, but yet he had certain familiarities with people, and certain rules that he could do, and certain ethics and
but
things
he was able. Somebody gave him a chip though at one point, and it was a total disaster. So that's what's scary. There's always that one thing,
and it's showing the abuse. And there is MK Ultra programming of human beings that are known to be brainwashed and are turned into bots. You'll notice that a lot of these killings of these lunatics, they all had catch in their eye. It's like the guy who killed John Lennon and other people and whatnot. And you start to say to yourself, stop. Just think about how much you're going to hurt yourself, because you might win the battle, but you're going to lose the real war. And the real war is being and identifying the things that can hurt all of us as a whole community. The Fukushimas of the world, the Yellowstones of the world, the EMPs of the world, the CMEs of the world, the flesh-eating bacteria of the world, all kinds of things that can hurt us. And only with cooperation and thinking outside the box and putting our minds together, every mind, every diversity, every person, thinking, because it'll be when John and I working together, he would say something and a bell would go off, the light bulb would go off. I would say something, a light bulb would go off. He'd start writing. This is what happens. Things feed upon each other when you work and you get into a rhythm, and all of a sudden you start seeing that all things are possible. All things are possible if you work together, if you think about. And because if you are thinking of the good, if you're doing good and there's a lot of good that can be done with these technologies, no question about it. With these drones, you have everything from power lines to fighting forest fires to everything, infestation, locusts, whatever. It can be done with these drones. Lots of great things can be done with them.
And they are being done. There are some good things going on, I'm sure.
And great things can be done. All technology can be really, and we've come down to it, can be used for good or can be used for bad. I'd rather see it used for good, because in the long run, all of us, if we're type 1 civilization, money doesn't matter. Energy will be almost free. Energy's free, food's free. Energy is money. Who cares? Then materials, asteroid belt, whatnot, moon. We could have a real Star Trek kind of civilization, folks. We can do it.
Well, maybe that's already happened in the future. Maybe you're talking about something that's already happened.
If people listen to my voice and we work together and we put the quash in us, well, you're this ultra right, or you're this ultra left, or you're this. No. Look, we all bleed. We all die. It all, and the reality is that we all can get cancer. We all can, so, that's basically it. I'm not talking about a socialist society. I'm talking about a cooperating capitalistic society who looks at problems and works on a problem together with the agenda that it's going to benefit everybody, because technology always ends up benefiting.
That sounds like something that artificial intelligence would do. That would be logical. We all work together, of course. Human beings have egos and they have problems and they can't work all together. It can happen. We've seen it with space programs and stuff. Look at all the stuff we've created. People have worked together.
John F. Kennedy, in 1961, he had the moon speech. And that moon speech is really, if you play it, and you can search it on YouTube, it's just as great today as it was then. And he said, why go to the moon? Why do these things? And he said it right there, because it'll bring out the best of us. It'll make us. He knew that no one person could do it. We all have to work together to do it. And the side benefits, the technologies, would be fantastic. Because, for example, if we have to go to the moon and we have to put a moon base there, just a moon base, you have to learn how to produce energy that's stupidly slick, nuclear based, runs forever, really efficient, costs nothing, and so that you can recycle like everything, all materials, everything, grow all your food, everything, okay? And it's all from energy. Then you have to have a photon computer because there's stuff from the sun, there's cosmic rays, everything. You have to have that. You have to have technologies that are going to benefit us here on Earth 10 million fold. 10 million fold. And then you start saying to yourself, well, why rob that bank? If I work together with this thing and we do these technologies, who needs a bank? Who needs that stuff? Because you see, you literally, any type of thing that you need will be able to be provided for.
What would you like to see artificial intelligence? How would you like to see, where would you like to see it go? If you had an artificial intelligence robot or something, what would you like it to be able to do? To watch your house? Sexual pleasures? What would it be?
We already have a certain amount of artificial intelligence in our lives already.
Do you have that thing where you talk into it and it turns your lights on and off? My brother-in-law has that stuff.
I never got it.
I'm not interested in that.
No.
It hears everything you're doing.
But when I had my stroke, as you know, I couldn't type. Couldn't really do anything.
Couldn't do anything, really.
And I ended up writing a Siri novel on my iPhone. And you even commented, like, some of the text messages I would say, you knew I was saying Siri because there was pizza in the oven. Or it was weird stuff. I call it the Siri speak. Because the thing assumes what it is when you're saying to it. But that's artificial intelligence, essentially. It learns how you speak, and it got better as I did it. 7 months into it, I said, that's it. This is existing. I think it was like 240-something pages worth of notes. And I finally, this is ridiculous. So I said to the doctors, stop all this crap. And they're like, oh, you'll die in a couple weeks and whatever. And I'm like, I don't really care. Because this is not, I can't remember anything. And it showed to me that memories is really life. That's really what it is. If you have really no memory of yesterday and you can't really look forward to tomorrow or anything like that. And it was really hard on the wife. I mean, she was having to repeat everything again and again.
It's tough.
So, and I'm still here, you know. That was a good use of the AI, no question about it. And I think that there's a lot of extra skeleton systems that make people stand up.
So you're saying that artificial intelligence could morph with human beings, cyborg-orientated. That's a positive thing.
Already happening. There's already vets, spinal injury people from accidents, amputees, whatnot, that are already learning robot arms, learning robot prosthetics, walking, exoskeletons, helping do things. They built an exoskeleton in Boston Dynamics, built a system for the Army. They built that robot for the Army, like a all-terrain pack mule, but it's a robot. I still want to see the red switch.
Yeah, really. A robot that could hurt people too. You know, this is
that Atlas thing. That guy's pushing them down and knocking them and getting in his way and stuff like that. And I'm like, one day that robot's gonna say, if I kill this person in front of me, I can accomplish my task a lot easier.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's logical.
Yeah, I think that things need to be done. I think the laws need to be because it's gonna happen. So just like the bioweapons, chemical weapons, nuclear proliferation, these things are going to happen, and they're going to happen exponentially. They're going to happen really fast. And you're right. People's going to start doing this in their homes. You know, but look.
They got 3D printers printing guns.
Yeah, but, you know, a lot of people don't realize, okay, so 800 people were killed in gun violence, okay, in this country last year. 800 people. Throughout. Right? Not shot. That's higher. 70,000 died from heroin overdoses. And that's bad.
But it doesn't get that kind of press that a gun does, you know?
Because a gun can be used to overthrow tyranny. A heroin needle can't.
Right.
That's why the Second Amendment is in there, and that's why it says shall not be infringed. Because the British, when they first did it, that's the first thing they went for. They went for the guns, they went for the ammo. Because they knew, just like Hitler knew, how you going to march millions of people into boxcars and take them into a place to be slaughtered? Well, if you unarm them, there's not a lot they can do, but maybe 12 guys holding a machine gun on a few hundred people.
Yeah, it's incredible.
See, that's why you can't give up the right to defend yourself. Only a good guy trained with a gun can defeat a bad guy with a gun. That's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's a reality. And with the printing and metal printing now.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
They have a system now where they're using laser beams to actually weld on a nanometer scale, 1,000th of an inch welds, and it puts it all together and builds up layers of metal.
Incredible.
So you're going to see printed guns, metal guns, printed everything. You're seeing, there's now, I saw a YouTube video of some yada yada and ISIS developing lithium bombs made out of batteries that have been discarded.
Wow.
So there was enough batteries that just did that on their own. But any technology can be abused with an evil intention.
Yeah.
There just has to be enough good people out there to rise above and say, hey, you know, and put that dream in the sky. Put that orbital, you know, tethered space station up so that here's this kid in India and he's looking up in the sky and says, what's that, Daddy? And, oh, that's a new orbital tethered space station. And then says, oh, I want to do that. I want to be constructive. I want to do that, you know. And energy is the real uplifter. Technology is the real uplifter. That's how you really get people out of poverty. When you get people out of poverty and you give them opportunity, they will stop stealing.
Right.
I think that artificial intelligence, like we said, can be used to benefit mankind, can be used for a lot of things. We've seen a lot of shows where, like Star Wars and Star Trek, where these robots can do a lot of good. And I'm sure, unfortunately, we've seen a lot of shows where these robots can do a lot of bad. But that's almost like with everything. I mean, guns can do good. You can count guns in the beginning, and they allowed us to survive here in that continent. And guns could do bad. They can kill other people. So it's like anything. There's always seems to be yin and yang with it.
Right. Well, we're talking to Bob Ball. We're talking about artificial intelligence. We talked about a lot of different things in this one. It's going to require quite a lot of editing, I think. But yeah, so again, artificial intelligence, it's got its positive side, but also there is that negative side that we've just got to watch out for. And hopefully people will have vision to be able to make it so this way it actually helps us instead of detracts from us being here on this planet.
Well, thanks for having me here again, John.
It was my pleasure. Take care.